Hello and welcome to the first CWJah-Tube Comments review. I thought I would start this series for everybody so that we could take a closer look at some of the comments that are posted to my videos. Now I want to warn you, if you're offended by terms like dumb or stupid, I understand. You might not want to watch this video because I'm not interested in how you feel about it. These are comments I received to my videos. And so I react and interact to different people based on the way they act and interact with me. I'm very familiar with the Bible. I don't need anyone to tell me whether or not it's Christian or biblical to call someone stupid, which I don't do in this video, but it comes up. I'm also actively translating both the Hebrew and Greek of the book of Proverbs. I've been doing it for several years. So, stupidity and things that are dumb, according to the Bible, are on my mind all the time. So when I see things that fit the description of what I'm translating in the Bible, I feel just fine pointing it out. But if that bothers you, if you have a Bible that doesn't have the book of Proverbs in it, for example, again, I'm giving you fair warning that some of those terms are going to come up. We're going to take a look at the context in which those terms come up by considering several comments by one individual that also get into issues related to space and time and God's house. So, without further ado, let's bring up the comments for us to review. These are several comments that were posted on part 3 of my calling out all Trinitarian scholars and apologetic cultists video. And they're posted by someone, at least the initial comment and the replies that responded to me are from someone called Love for Jesus. The person begins by greeting me. Hi, Greg. I used to be a JW, and I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. I am praying for your salvation. I have a question for you. If Jesus was with Jehovah before the creation of the heavens or heavens and the earth, where was Jesus dwelling? Also, if Jehovah is above Jesus, Jehovah would have to occupy space and time, matter. If Jehovah is eternal, then he cannot be above anything, because God does not occupy space and time. Several definitive statements here about what is or isn't true about God that we'll consider further in a moment. But it just so happens that this person is repeating several arguments that others have told me. A spiritually retarded lame who regularly blasphemes God and this channel, and me personally, brought up to try to argue on behalf of the Trinity, or concepts related to it involving time. So here this person has come to my channel and presented this argument for me. My response: Jah is the existing one, Ha'on, according to Revelation 1:4, in contrast to Jesus in the same verse. Hebrews 3:4 says, every house is built by someone, and God built all things. So before God built his house, John 14:2, he merely existed in a way beyond our comprehension as the Ha'on. He first created Jesus, as is clear from numerous texts, comparison of Deuteronomy 21:17 with Colossians 1:15 on firstborn. Jesus is giving life by the Father who already has life in him, John 5:26. Revelation 3:14, which uses arche with the genitive expression that always means the beginning of that which is named in the genitive. And Proverbs 8:22 through 25, which explicitly teaches wisdom, identified in the New Testament as Jesus, was begotten or created, they're used in parallel sequence, before the physical creations, and many others. My comment goes on, and then made everything through him, including his house. If you would just read the Bible and not follow spiritually retarded lames or traditions, you would know this, but I am praying for you. And notice, not one biblical text is cited in this comment. And so I go on and point that out. I notice you do not provide one single reference for your views, totally unlike my response. Therefore, may I ask, where are you getting God does not occupy space or time? If not in the Bible, and you believe the Bible, please stop teaching what you cannot prove from it. Otherwise, you look stupid. Thank you. I then go on and state, now, since Jesus is God's firstborn in a non-figurative context, Hebrews 1:6, Colossians 1:15, and since the Bible explicitly defines non-figurative firstborns as the beginning of one's children, Septuagint, Deuteronomy 21:17, or generative power, Hebrew, you must believe Jesus is the beginning of God's children / generative power, right? If not, who is God's real firstborn? Please answer using only the Bible, not traditions, and not comments by idiots who reject Jesus as God's real firstborn. Thanks again. Before we go back and deal with some of the issues raised in the first comment by Love for Jesus, specifically God's house, space, and time, let's go back and finish the rest of the comments so we have the full context of the discussion, which is still there on part 3 of my Calling Out Trinitarian Scholars and Apologetic Cultists video. Let's go back and finish the comments, and then we'll take a closer look at God's house, space, and time. Love for Jesus responded, Greg, don't worry about his misspelling of my name. That's okay. I don't hold it against Love for Jesus. I am praying for you 24/7. How about that? Someone is somehow able to be awake all the time praying for me. I don't believe that's possible, but let's take a further look and see. I write back, Love for Jesus, good. Praying is where you should be, not asking questions about things not taught in the Bible. Speaking of the latter, where's the answer to my comments in response to your questions? Why couldn't anyone in your prayer group answer your questions? I'm glad you came to me because, as you can see, I do answer your questions. But why didn't anyone else? Weird. Anyway, once you do respond, or accept what I wrote to you, either one, I'll be happy to answer your next question. Still praying for you. Love for Jesus responds, Hi, Greg. It is very unbiblical to call someone stupid. Where in the Bible does it say to belittle someone and call them stupid? Would Jesus do that? Would God be pleased? I have been very kind to you, and I am merely just trying to have a polite discussion with you. I would like to schedule a time to have an urgent and serious conversation with you. Do you have an email address? Jesus loves you more than you can imagine. I'm praying for you. I wrote back, Love for Jesus, where did I call you stupid? I then followed up, It is very unbiblical to ask someone a question you could not answer on your own, and then ignore it and jump to a totally different question. That was right here, the initial question and my response. And instead of addressing my response, we get the 24/7 prayer comment where I followed up that the person didn't respond to my questions, and neither did anyone else apparently in Love for Jesus' prayer group. So, in this case, Love for Jesus then focused on whether or not it's biblical to call someone stupid, which is not what I did. If we go back, and Love for Jesus is going to quote me in just a moment, I said, Love for Jesus does not provide one single reference, unlike me, and instead stated, without any biblical authority, God does not occupy space or time. And then I said, if that's not in the Bible, and Love for Jesus believes the Bible, then Love for Jesus should stop teaching what he or she cannot prove from the Bible. Otherwise, Love for Jesus looks stupid. So Love for Jesus then focused on that, not my answer in response to the initial question. After I asked Love for Jesus to tell me where I called Love for Jesus stupid, which I didn't do, I'll get to it further in a moment, but I just showed you, I then followed up again and stated, it is very unbiblical to ask someone a question you could not answer on your own, and then ignore it and jump to a totally different question. Right here, how does one gain eternal life? Instead of responding to me, which is a response to the first question, Love for Jesus ignored it and asked me a different question, but then focused on what Love for Jesus perceived to be me calling him or her stupid. And so, in addition to asking where I specifically called Love for Jesus stupid, versus stating that if you state something's in the Bible and it's not, and you claim to believe the Bible, you should stop teaching it, or you would look stupid. Otherwise, in other words, if you keep doing this, you look stupid. That's not calling someone stupid. It's saying you're doing things that if you don't stop doing, you look stupid. Which is true. While waiting for Love for Jesus to point out where I specifically called him or her stupid, I followed up and said it's very unbiblical, as I stated, to not answer someone's question and then ignore it, jump to a different one. Don't you find that extremely rude? You just did it. Why are you being so rude while praying? 24/7, right? Somehow love for Jesus is able to pray for me without any sleep, 7 days a week, 24 hours each day. We know that's not possible, right? So love for Jesus is either extremely exaggerating or lying. Moving on to the final part of the exchange. I then followed up again while waiting for the explanation and the citation where I called love for Jesus stupid, versus suggesting that if love for Jesus didn't stop acting stupid, he or she would look stupid. I state, no need to schedule any time with you. We're here now, and you refuse to answer me. So, you're obviously just pretending. I mean, it makes you look dumb, right? Love for Jesus' actions here, pretending like he or she wants to have a serious conversation with me when we're already doing that, and love for Jesus isn't responding to me after I took the time out of my schedule from everyone and everything to write a reply and cite biblical texts that explain my position in response to love for Jesus' original question. So love for Jesus couldn't possibly be interested in a serious discussion because we're already having it and he or she isn't having it. They're jumping to other questions, seizing on perceived personal attacks that are based on the way they're acting, and pretending not only to have a serious conversation and not, but also that they're praying for me in a way he or she could not. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I didn't make you look dumb, by the way. You did. So please ask yourself why you make people like yourself look so dumb. I'd like to know. Right? You're coming to my channel. You're posting questions that look like they may be somewhat serious. You totally ignore my very serious biblical citation-based answer. And then you jump to another question, make a ridiculous claim about praying for me, I guess without ever sleeping or eating, and you don't think that looks dumb? Not answering after I responded, jumping to different questions, claiming you care so much about me in a way that's not even possible. I'd like to know what motivates a person to do those things. It doesn't make you look smart. It makes you look dumb. You might want to read the book of Proverbs, like I have. And then you might learn something about looking dumb. Love for Jesus came back and responded to my question about calling him or her stupid. This is your comment. I copied and pasted it for you here, for your view. Here it is. There's no quotation on it, but basically it's the quote from back here where I said, if it's not in the Bible, what love for Jesus is claiming is true, and you believe the Bible, please stop teaching what you cannot prove. Otherwise, you look stupid. So love for Jesus comes back, quotes me here. I notice, this is me. He's quoting me, he or she's quoting me, but no quotation. I notice you do not provide one single reference for your views, totally unlike my response. Therefore, may I ask, where are you getting God does not occupy space and time? Still quoting me. If not in the Bible, and you believe the Bible, please stop teaching what you cannot prove from it. Otherwise, you look stupid. Thank you. Let's go to my last comment down here first, and then we'll jump up to this part. And then we'll go to some biblical texts about space and time and God's house. Love for Jesus, right? Can you read? Because I wrote otherwise, meaning if you contradict yourself as you proceeded to do, then you, quote unquote, quoting me, look stupid. That's hardly calling you stupid, like the Bible does over and over and over again. It's telling you if you act stupid, you look stupid. Surely you don't disagree with that, do you? If so, please explain how you can look stupid and not be stupid. But either way, that is not calling you stupid. It's setting up the conditions for you to show you are stupid, which you did. Congratulations. Now let's finish up the series of exchanges with the preceding comment I made, because this one directly addressed the quotation Love for Jesus made from me earlier in this exchange. I state, you claim it is very unbiblical to call someone stupid, which I did not do, as you can see if you just read what you should already have read. However, are you telling me you have never read the book of Proverbs? Do you know how many times it calls people stupid? I'd tell you, but why ruin the fun of counting yourself? Of course, since you reject calling people stupid, which I did not do, but which the Bible does over and over and over and over and over and over, and well, you get the point again. Can we conclude you lied a moment ago by claiming to believe the Bible? Please answer, or I'll have to assume you are just a liar. And I'd hate to have to do that. These are the people I have to deal with, folks. And sometimes they make good points or ask interesting questions. And I would say that the first post Love for Jesus made fits that a little bit. And that's why I answered it. But thereafter, it was like my answer didn't even exist. All this other stuff became the issue, where Love for Jesus proceeded to say it's not biblical to call someone stupid, while claiming to believe the Bible, which has a whole book that I'm currently translating, pointing out people who are stupid. So, should we conclude Love for Jesus doesn't have the book of Proverbs in the Bible that he or she is using? Or that Love for Jesus doesn't believe the Bible because Love for Jesus claimed it's very unbiblical to call someone stupid, and yet that's not true. That's false. Just like Love for Jesus comments about God's house, space, and time. Let's take a look at that again before we consider some text together. First comment that we read earlier, getting to the question, I have a question for you. If Jesus was with Jehovah before the creation of heavens and the earth, where was Jesus Christ dwelling? Also, if Jehovah is above Jesus, Jehovah would have to occupy space and time. If Jehovah is eternal, then he cannot be above anything, because God does not occupy space or time. No biblical texts, just statements of fact being attributed to God and Jesus in the Bible as if they're correct. And we know, as I just showed, I followed up and asked Love for Jesus, where in the Bible does it say God does not occupy space and time. No response to that question. No texts. No defense. I guess he or she is too busy praying for me all the time to give me actual citations. Maybe you could take a break for just a few minutes, love for Jesus, and actually defend your position as biblical next. Because that's what I'm going to do. Ready? Here we go. Let's take a look at these texts together. Psalm 90, verse 4. 1,000 years are in your eyes, but as yesterday, when it is past, and as a watch during the night. Now, this is very similar to the very next text, which most of us are familiar with, 2 Peter 3:8. However, let this one fact not be escaping your notice, beloved ones, that one day is with para, Jehovah. Divine name doesn't occur here in the Greek text. It's not part of a quotation, so I don't agree with the NWT's use of it here. But I've already explained why. So Watchtower Society members, you should be aware you don't really have good justification for the divine name here. But I've already talked about that, and so we're going to move on. However, I want to note it here so people aren't confused about its presence. I do believe the references to Jehovah. I just don't believe the divine name should be used where it's not quoted from the Old Testament where the divine name occurs. Not unless you have manuscript authority otherwise for it. But we're going to read it anyway. One day with Jehovah or the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. That's time. It doesn't say one day with Jehovah or with God or the Lord is eternal. It says that one day to him is a longer period of time, 1,000 years, just like in Psalm 94. This is how the Hebrew text in the Old Testament and the Greek text in the New Testament present time as it relates to Jehovah or God. It doesn't say he doesn't relate to time or that it's always eternal in his time. It presents a different scale of time that he relates to, even though he's eternal. So we just can't comprehend that because we're not eternal ourselves. We relate to time as we understand and experience it in our temporal world. God is the existing one, as I quoted from Revelation 1:4. He just exists. That's how the Bible presents him. And in his existence, he relates to time. Time is not a thing that you can be inside of. It is a measurement between actions, events, thoughts, anything that occurs in relation to something else. That's how we use it ourselves. When we say, what time is it? We're talking about the sequence, the measurement that we use that charts events, movements, positions, all of the things that we observe and that take place relative to each other, just like with God. Although he's eternal, so everything that relates to something that occurs with him is on a different scale, presented here as one day being 1,000 years. That's what the Bible teaches. And with that scale of time, God is eternal as the existing one. Now, love for Jesus wanted to know where Jesus lived, right? Let's go back to that just a moment so that we can determine briefly, or get the context, I should say, clear in our minds. Where was Jesus dwelling? If Jesus was with Jehovah before the creation of the heavens and the earth, where was Jesus dwelling? You see how far these people will go? They'll actually try to get in to the metaphysical existence of God and the pre-human Jesus without any biblical text and question whether or not Jesus was homeless. Right? They can't even, in going into the metaphysical speculation in which they're using, come up with an explanation from the Bible about where Jesus was dwelling. And they use this as a basis for trying to prove, I guess, since we're talking about the video in which I discussed things related to concepts involving eternality, generation, the relationship between the Son and the Father, so that it's not Trinitarian in the Bible, stating if Jehovah's eternally can't be above anything, doesn't occupy space or time, where was Jesus dwelling if he was with Jehovah before the creation of the heavens and the earth? Let's take a look at what the Bible tells us about that. Luke 16:9. Also, I say to you, make friends for yourselves by means of the unrighteous riches, so that when such fail, they may receive you, love for Jesus, into the everlasting dwelling places. Have you ever read Luke 16, love for Jesus? Because it seems like if you had, you would already know there are places you would consider eternal, although we'll get to that further in a moment, because the text states, tas aionius skenas. Most of you Trinitarians try to argue that that means eternal, either going backwards or going forwards, which is not true. But it is true to you, at least many of you. So why couldn't you come up with this explanation, love for Jesus? No one in your prayer group or church or religion knows about Luke 16:9? Not even the spiritually retarded lame after whom you're asking this question on my time? So, if Jesus teaches there are eternal dwelling places, or at least places that are existing long before the creation of the heavens and the earth, why are you asking this question? The Bible answers it for you. Hebrews 3:4. This is a text I cited in my answer to Love for Jesus to explain that God actually builds houses. Like in John 14:2, in the house of my Father there are many abodes. I'm going away, prepare a place for you. I'm going to return again. Where I am, you also will be. So, if Jesus in John 14:2 teaches the Father has a house, and Luke 16:9, Jesus teaches these are eternal houses, again, why are you asking me this question? It's explicitly answered in the biblical text. And as far as whether or not these houses are eternal, just like I wrote to Love for Jesus, Hebrews 3:4 makes it explicit that everlasting, aionios, is not eternal, always going backwards. They're not eternal houses. God is the existing one, Revelation 1:4. He creates the firstborn one, Proverbs 8:22 through 25, Deuteronomy 21:17, Hebrews 1:6, Colossians 1:15, Revelation 3:14, John 5:26. We have many texts to show this. Creates the firstborn, begets the firstborn, same thing. And then, since houses aren't God's firstborn, he creates houses in heaven where he exists, where he occupies a place that's called his house according to Jesus in John 14:2. He made every house. Every house is constructed by someone. He that constructed all things, including houses in heaven, love for Jesus, is God. So anyone who would ask the question, where was God living before he made Jesus, or before he made heaven? Or where was Jesus living when he was with God before they made the heavens and the earth? Is either ignorant of widely available and well-known non-controversial texts, or blaspheming, just so they can try to make an argument that doesn't make any sense. Hence, there was not one single biblical text cited in the question Love for Jesus asked me. Totally different than how I and those who are like me deal with these texts, right? I mean, that's what we do. We're only interested in the text view. That's why when someone asks me, where was God living before he created Jesus or any heavenly house? He's existing. Revelation 1:4. He exists. We don't need to know anything more. You do. You have to try to come up with some metaphysical question or speculation to try to sustain your non-biblical view. We don't. We just read the text and we accept it. God is eternal. He's the Father. No one created him. He's the existing one. He created Jesus as the firstborn, the beginning of his children, the beginning of his creation. And through Jesus, he made every house in heaven. For him, my Father's house, and for his sons, many abodes. John 14:2. Another well-known, non-controversial text. And these houses that God made after he created Jesus, in which God dwells, occupying space, in total defiance of your view, these houses that Jesus said his Father has and made are called eternal or everlasting, even though we know they're not. Because he that constructed all things in the context of every house being constructed is God. So every house is constructed. Eternal, aionios, does not mean eternal as if they've always been there like God, the existing one, or as if they had to be made before the firstborn one. Because first you have to exist and make your firstborn son in order for there to be a place or a person like your son to live in with you in the house you create through and in him. Colossians 1:15 through 17. I'm going to do a whole show about it in my Bible and the Trinity and Conflict series in the future. But the meaning is plain. God doesn't need a house to exist. He exists. He creates houses for him and for Jesus and all the sons of God who shouted in applause according to Job 38:7 when he made the heavens and the earth. Before that time, as Proverbs 8 makes plain, he begat and created, same thing, wisdom, who in the New Testament is Jesus, the firstborn of God, the beginning of the creation by God. All temporal terms used in a non-figurative context, and so we accept the text. We don't have to present arguments based on what's next and that don't have any texts and that absolutely explicitly defy the meaning of these texts. So I wanted to go over these comments with you all to show you the kinds of things that people are presenting to me and that I know they're presenting to you. Because before Love for Jesus brought this to my channel, I heard it from other people too. From an individual who is known for coming up with some of the stupidest arguments possible to try and sustain a dying doctrine by any means possible, because they don't have anything left. All they're left with are arguments that defy the text, blaspheme God and His Son, and His house in heaven, and make statements about Him not occupying time or space without even defining time or space in the first place so that it might support their question. We go to the Bible. I highly encourage all of you, and especially you, Love for Jesus, to do that too. Then I guarantee you won't look dumb, you won't look stupid, and in fact, you'll be right in line with the wisdom that comes to our mind when we read and accept the teachings of God.